We are back in session, everyone. And we are honored to have Trent from Department of Homeland Security, CISA, with us today. And another speaker, Michael Dunaway from NIST, National, there you are.
Here I am.
Institute of Standards and Technology. Thank you both for being here. Just in case some people are wondering, previously we also have a mayor from Georgia, Mayor Hardy Davis, with us, but unfortunately he had unexpected surgery. So we wish him a smooth surgery and a speedy recovery. But he, as well as the Assistant Director, Trent's colleague here at CISA, who also just came down with the flu last night, so cannot be here, but both of them have said that they very much look forward to the outcomes from our session. So without further ado, let's start our session with the wonderful leaders. Trent, don't get fooled by his screen name, Alex, who's a colleague who helped him with the login into the conference. So Trent and Michael, let's get started. My name is Alaina Jenson. I am the founder and CEO of nonprofit Cybertrust America, which previously was called Adaptable Security. I hope you all like this second identity that we have picked, because it is much better to go mainstream with this name. And for today's session, we have prepared to zoom in onto the latest developments in the smart cities and cybersecurity field. And the first one is a quick intro of what NIST is doing. Michael, earlier we both Raimondo, the speakers in the previous two sessions, Raimondo and the Leading Smart Cities with Trust certificate course also mentioned NIST's role in it. So would you mind giving us a quick high-level overview of the latest developments in NIST Smart Cities field?
Sure, Alaina. Do you want me to make a presentation or just a brief introduction, or how would you prefer?
Yeah, maybe first a quick quick intro and based on your thinking, and then later on we'll have a chance to present.
Yeah, be glad to. So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world here. Very pleased to be on this session. Very much regret that we don't have Mayor with us. So you're going to get, as it works out, a federal perspective on the cybersecurity realm, because you've got two federal agency members here on this panel. So I'm Michael Dunaway. I lead the Smart Cities program at the Communications Technology Laboratory at the National Institute of Standards and Technologies. And the program, which many of you are probably familiar with, is called the GCTC. Those are its acronyms. It's the Global City Technology Challenge. We have been around since about 2014. So 8 years now, this program has been in existence. It is a public-private partnership on a national scale. We have had interactions with over 220 cities, both the U.S. and international, over the course of these 8 years, and a number of major conferences in Washington, D.C., and then a whole bunch of probably more important or as important focused seminars and webinars like this one. And Lon has turned this one into an annual event in Cybersecurity Month. And as I don't need to tell those of you who are sitting in on this session that everything we do in smart cities, in any dimension at all, connected with IoT systems, with cyber physical systems, with communications, telecommunications, but then just communications among members has a cybersecurity or a security component to it. So this is a really important initiative. In this particular conference, this particular webinar, which has become now an annual affair for us, an event for us, really takes the lead in putting the smart cities perspective and cybersecurity in the dimension all on the stage for the participants here and for those of us who share in this profession, have worked in this field. So, Lon, I'll let it go at that for the moment.
Thank you, Michael. And I should add that since Michael started with the initiative, the group is now marching towards a focused approach guided by a strategy, a cohesive strategy for the group. And so we in the community, in the group, GCTC, the Global City Technology Consortium, or the communities consortium, are looking forward to tangible actions next. Next trend, as my prepared intro does not work anymore, if you don't mind giving us a quick intro of yourself.
Absolutely, and thank you for letting me join today's discussion. As mentioned, my name is Trent Frazier. I have the honor of serving as the Deputy Assistant Director for Engagement here at the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, otherwise known as CISA. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here with all of you today, especially as we celebrate the last week of Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And for those of you in the audience who may not be familiar with CISA, don't worry, we are one of the newest and youngest agencies in the federal government. We're working actively to get the word out that we're here. It's our mission to protect the nation's critical infrastructure from both physical and cyber threats. Now, through this mission, it's our responsibility to protect the functions of government and the private sector that are so vital to the United States that their disruption, corruption, or dysfunction would have a debilitating effect on security, our economic security, or public health and safety across the nation. These critical services include the water we drink, the electricity that lights our homes, and the gas that we get at the fuel pumps. These are the systems and networks that underpin our everyday lives. When it comes to protecting these critical systems, we're trying to think outside of the box. We want to avoid the perils of a traditional lumbering government bureaucracy and stay agile and committed to the partnerships that we have built across the greater community. And quite frankly, because the vast majority of our infrastructure is owned and operated by many of you here today in the private sector and across state and local government, partnerships are critical to the success of our mission. This is something we've been really focused on at CISA, and I'm proud to say that over the past year, we have been swinging that door wide opening by deepening operational collaboration with our industry partners, government and international partners, and communities like you. Through this partnership expansion, we seek to make U.S. cyberspace as difficult an operating environment as possible for our adversaries. We've made tremendous progress in these efforts as there have been more focused, robust collaborations between the public and private sector in responding to the recent and urgent security threats now confronting our nation. While this collaboration has been great, we recognize that we can't rest where we are today. The threat landscape changes so quickly, and industry is often seeing vulnerabilities or breaches first, which is why it is imperative for all of us to work together to mitigate these threats. This is something we've been really focused on driving across the community throughout Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Through October, we've been focused on what it means to see yourself in cyber, whether you're already working in cybersecurity or you're a vendor or supplier, an infrastructure owner or operator, a student, a job seeker, or just an individual who uses the internet for work, school, or entertainment. For individuals and families, we encourage you to see yourself taking action to stay safe online. Now, that means enabling basic cyber hygiene practices like updating your software, thinking before you click, having good, strong passwords or even a password keeper, and enabling multi-factor authentication, meaning you need more than just a password to protect yourself and all of your sensitive accounts. For those considering joining the cyber community, we encourage you to see yourself joining the cyber workforce. We'll be talking with leaders in Atlanta and from across the country about how we can build a cybersecurity workforce that is bigger, more diverse, and dedicated to solving the problems that will keep this country safe. For our partners in industry, we encourage you to see yourself as part of the solution. That means putting operational collaboration into practice, working together to share information real time, and reducing risk and building resilience from the start to protect America's critical infrastructure and systems that Americans rely on every day. Now, we've been working to highlight different ways individuals and organizations can improve their cybersecurity efforts, whether that's at home, work, or school, through actions like the following: enabling multi-factor authentication. You need more than a password to protect your online accounts, and enabling MFA makes you significantly less likely to get hacked. Using strong passwords. It sounds perfunctory, but using passwords that are long, unique, and randomly generated are key steps to ensuring that you can protect those sensitive accounts. Recognizing and reporting phishing. If a link looks a little off, think before you click it. It could be an attempt to get sensitive information or even install malware. And of course, update your software often. Don't delay. If you see a software update notification, act promptly. Better yet, turn on automatic updates. Now, while October is coming to an end, our efforts to increase cybersecurity awareness across the community will not end. I encourage you all to join us and collaborate with us to enhance our collective security, and I look forward to diving into the topics we have a little more thoroughly throughout today's discussion. And again, thank you for the opportunity to join you today.
Alex, I mean, just looking at Trent.
No, that's okay.
Trent, you couldn't couldn't help but nod in my head because what you said is as if we read your mind. Us working together, getting the workforce strong, and also getting the awareness, the tangible steps to protect ourselves are all in throughout today's session and tomorrow's session, Alex. And so especially for tomorrow, how to protect your passwords and how to differentiate phishing and how to implement the multi-factor authentication, we will have a clinic to protect the small businesses as well as individuals by helping them help them getting it installed in VPN, for example. So right on, Trent. Now, for this conference, this year we take on a little bit different approach, and associated with the changing landscape and also the funding opportunities that have come down and heightened awareness. And so in the past 4 years, we have attracted about 1,000 registrants to our events worldwide. But this year is more about getting partners to enable particular capabilities together. And so as you can see, all of this, people who have come on to the sessions now are more intimately collaborating together. So that's one thing I wanted to share with you, just as a hitting your topics earlier, that, hey, consider yourself as part of the solution. And that's exactly what we are marching on in that direction. That being said, the one question we have coming right down to the point of the funding. We are witnessing these great opportunities now with increased taxpayers' investments at the federal level, state level, as well as local cities and counties and school districts levels. Particularly, take the infrastructure bill as an example. The $1.1 billion are now out in the form of NOFO, Notice of Funding Opportunity. So this question goes to Trent. What do cities and communities do to best utilize this round of investments to protect their cities as well as their stakeholders' data? And is there any timeline for it?
Absolutely. Thanks, Lan. I appreciate the question. We're incredibly thrilled in the investments that Congress and the administration have made over the past year to bolster digital security for state governments and local communities. Specifically, we're exceptionally thrilled that the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act included funding for what you already mentioned, the state and local cybersecurity grant program. This is a first-of-a-kind grant program for us here at CISA in partnership with the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Now, as you mentioned, in September, the Department of Homeland Security opened the application process for this new grant program. It's $1 billion that's divided up over a 4-year period to help eligible state, local, and territorial partners address cybersecurity risk to their information systems, networks, and infrastructure. The Notice of Funding Opportunity was released on September 16th and provides applicants 60 days to apply for a grant program for their grant allocation, which can be used to fund new or existing cybersecurity programs within and across their jurisdictions. Now, there's a lot of nuance and complexity here. The key message is that 60-day period for applications at the state and territorial level closes on November 15th, but it is not the completion of the process. In fact, the way that this program is designed, states, localities, and territorial governments face some unique challenges, and we wanted to build in an opportunity for them to really embark on an in-depth and thorough planning process to develop a cybersecurity plan that will ultimately identify where they have critical vulnerabilities or capability gaps, and then through that planning process, identify the types of mitigations that they can implement in the execution of their allocations, both in year 1 and in year 2 of this program. Now, we work in close partnership with FEMA in the execution of this program. We provide the subject matter expertise and ensure that we're working to support our state partners and our territorial partners as they're designing those cybersecurity plans. One of the key components of that effort is we now have 10 regional offices operating throughout the country where we have state cybersecurity coordinators and cybersecurity advisors that are available to assist in the development of these cybersecurity planning efforts. There's a number of measures identified in the Notice of Funding Opportunities that we encourage participants today to take a close look at. One is the program is designed around 4 overarching objectives: to ensure that states and communities are implementing cyber governance measures and planning activities, that they're effectively assessing and evaluating their systems and capabilities to understand where they have critical vulnerabilities, and that they're developing mitigation measures that are prioritized around the most critical vulnerabilities to address those in part as they're executing their grant allocations. And finally, of course, this program is also a valuable resource to assist our state and local partners as they're looking to develop their cybersecurity workforce. And as we've talked about earlier in the opening discussion for today's session, cybersecurity workforce is one of those areas that we are all keenly focused on developing. Now, you can find more information about this program on cisa.gov/cybergrants, where you'll find a number of key documents, including the Notice of Funding Opportunity itself, as well as our ongoing and regularly updated frequently asked questions section. That'll provide you with all of the information you need. Particularly important, though, if you as a community are looking for ways to get involved, we encourage you to work closely with your state and territorial governments. At that governmental level, they are going to be establishing planning committees that must include representation of the local communities within their states and territories. That is the opportunity for you to really have a voice in the development of those cybersecurity plans and to ensure that your needs are being addressed through the allocation of those grants themselves. So please reach out to your states, the state administrative agencies, and your state CIOs or CISOs as they're establishing those planning committees to ensure that your voices are heard in the process. And of course, if there's anything we can do, please reach out to us. There will be information that we provide as part of this session today for ways that you can reach out to us. But of course, we strongly encourage you to work closely with your regional office. You'll find information on our website about all 10 regions and how to access those points of contact throughout the country. So please reach out. We're happy to support you.
There is, thank you for the wealth of information. 6 days period that I'm sure not everyone knows about that yet. So after the 60 days passed, will the jurisdictions have another chance to submit any plans at all, or it's just the 60-day window is out and gone?
That's a great question. And just to make sure that folks understand, the 60-day window is purely for the states and territories to apply. it does not require that they submit their cybersecurity plans by that deadline. In fact, we're encouraging them to take longer as necessary to develop more thorough, comprehensive plans across their state. So the intent is really a two-step process. First, the states apply, and that gives us notice that they would like to receive their allocation of grant dollars. And then as part of that, they then work with us in the development of a cybersecurity plan. When they submit that cybersecurity plan, we at CISA and FEMA review that plan, and upon approval, we'll release the remaining dollars for that allocation for the state. That is the point where then communities can begin to utilize those resources in accordance with their developed plan to start to execute the projects they've developed as part of that planning process. So that deadline is for states to apply. It is not for the submission of the actual cybersecurity plan. There is actually a very lengthy timeline for communities to get involved now. And that's why we really encourage you to start reaching out to your states, your CIOs, and your state administrative agencies to ensure that your voice is heard as part of that process. And I did want to answer a question I saw quickly in the chat, if you don't mind, Lan.
Yes, please.
We're currently actively in consultation with tribal governments right now for the development of a tribal program that will be complementary to the state and territorial program. That notice of funding opportunity has not been released, and upon the completion of the tribal consultation process, we plan to release that notice of funding opportunity later this year or early in the beginning of calendar year 23.
Thank you for that. Next question will go to both Michael and Trent. The question is about knowing what you need to protect, because you cannot protect what you don't know. And one tool that people have been using, the most widely adopted framework is NIST Cybersecurity framework. And cities and communities have largely adopted it, especially in the form of a assessment tool called Nationwide Cybersecurity Review, as administered by the CISA organization in the United States. However, I do want to mention that the latest data, published data in 2020, CISA said in that year, a little shy of 3,000 state and local governments took the assessment. And that is about 3% of the total number of local governments in the United States, which is over 90,000 of them. And so I did some calculation, because the NCSR got started in 2004, in 2014. So no, this is the 10th year or 9th year in 2022. And so if at that rate, just getting the NCSR down among most of the local governments will take 50 plus years. So my crappy math yielded that a 50 years timeline. So in the United States, one would think that there may be some ways to move that timeline closer, not so far ahead, almost one person's lifetime. So the question therefore goes to Michael. Do you think first, and then to Trent, Michael, do you think that there is a way that the self-help assessment tool, or just a NIST CSF, could be adopted by more local governments so that they can speed up the assessments? And if so, do you envision yourself playing a role in it?
Yeah, thanks for that, Lon. That's a tough question. I was wondering where you came up with the 50-year estimate. I was a little perturbed when I saw that. I'll comment on that just briefly. I wanted to follow on. Let me just before I do that, make a comment on what Trent just provided in information. I wanted to highlight two areas of opportunity, or one area in particular of opportunity for communities and cities. The National Science Foundation, so the National Institute of Standards and Technologies is the research and development laboratory of the Department of Commerce. So we're not a funding agency, so I can't unfortunately quote a really good NOFO release from NIST in the areas that we're talking about, although there are a few specific. We have a broad area announcement, just like other agencies do, and a small business innovation research project, but they're fairly targeted. One I do want to mention, however, is in the National Science Foundation. The National Science Foundation has two programs in smart and connected communities. One's called the S&CC program, and the homepage for the National Science Foundation's research and development effort is on the smart city. So if you query NSF and smart cities, you're going to come up with the program page, the landing page for that. The reason I mention this is this. The funding coming out of National Science Foundation tends to be targeted and fairly small, but it requires collaboration between cities, research and development universities in some cases, small businesses, large businesses, and government agencies, including local government agencies. So there are opportunities to define real research and development efforts that then lead to enhanced capabilities in cybersecurity. And they're specifically focused on building those collaboration structures among cities and communities. So I just wanted to make mention of that to add on to what Trent was saying, but I want to springboard off of that, because the building of the collaboration at the local level on up to state, and in our case, with the Global City Teams Challenge with a federal partner, is really key to the cybersecurity problem. It's an ecosystem, just like IoT and cyber is an ecosystem. The security dimension is itself an ecosystem. And collaboration, in my mind, is actually, if there is a key, if there is a single thing that probably has as big an effect or as large an effect as anything, it would be that. Now, on the collaboration, what you want to do is you want to put a framework and a structure to the way that collaboration is built, whether it's within a business or an enterprise or a community or a city. And in my mind, the NIST cybersecurity framework is one of those guideline documents, a foundational document that can really put cities and organizations and even small businesses on a path to really thinking through how they define their problem, how they understand themselves and their vulnerabilities and the risks that they face, and then also the network of community partners that they can call on to assist in building security inside the ecosystem that they live in. So I would say that if there is a way to accelerate the 50-year timescale that Lon has presented to us, I think it's probably in building a very tight collaboration with the people in your immediate circle. And I'm talking people, but I mean really organizations, businesses, business enterprises, business districts inside a city, and then the larger city itself and the region all the way up to the state level. Build those networks of contact and make cybersecurity a collaborative effort and draw on the resources that exist across your entire ecosystem, some of which you may not even be aware of. And I think that's probably the key thing from my perspective. And it certainly has a critical role to play in the smart city movement and the smart community initiatives.
Thanks, Michael. And right on, as a matter of fact, later on, there is going to be a session when a group of partners are going to discuss how to even collaborate more closely together. So that being said, Trent, one thing that we have noticed is that CISA has been effective in getting up the structure and with also local advisors to have a boot on the ground for local governments to get their needs met. And now with this funding, there will be more meaningful and large-scale initiatives to improve the posture. So that's all great. And now one question is, as a next step of what Michael suggested as well, is that if locally there are organizations, especially smaller businesses, and across the board, nonprofits and communities, they are able to build up a network and help with also the workforce development and placement, as well as training and mentoring students along the way, and in getting small businesses into the digital space securely. There is a need for funding. So my question, therefore, is, while the $1.1 billion comes through states to local governments, etc., how can this community-driven collaboration also get some support? Any comments and guidance on that, Trent?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I kind of want to expand a little bit on some of what Michael was saying earlier, but maybe as the springboard to that. Well, part of the design of the program that we just issued, and there are actually a few other similar cyber-related grant programs in other parts of the federal government, is that we've designed it to have what we call a very flexible structure of objectives that the states and localities can use in designing their cybersecurity planning efforts and ultimately identifying the mitigation measures or projects that they'd like to execute under the program. That was intentional in part because we had to recognize at the outset that we at the federal government level, while we esteem ourselves sort of hyper aware of all of the things happening within the threat landscape, we fully have to understand that we don't understand all of the needs of each of our unique communities and the members of those communities. So one of the things we're encouraging the communities of interest that I think you're thinking about to do are really work with their local communities and their states in assessing their cyber posture from the perspective not of sort of the broader complex things that we often find ourselves talking about, but from the very basic foundational elements of cyber hygiene. First, to understand where vulnerabilities may lie, and then develop mitigations, whether that is through some technical mitigation or through the kinds of training efforts and educational programs that I think you're referring to that could be used to address those foundational elements from the outset. It is often the case that the most effective measures that small businesses, communities, and even individuals can take are not the sort of complex, highly technical things that we often talk about. It is the basic cyber hygiene things that typically just requires an educated consumer or an educated user to implement, whether that is at the individual or at the business level. So that is certainly one of the things we want to encourage, is for community groups and individuals to get involved with their localities as part of that planning process and really develop a whole of community approach to the measures that they propose to implement. Again, speaking at the level that I operate at, we expect to see 56 state or territorial cybersecurity plans that reflect a lot of really good on-the-ground focus for what each of these communities need in the development of those plans. We don't anticipate a sort of all one answer solution that fits everyone. That's just not the case. The second thing I would encourage folks to do, and Michael's absolutely right, I mean, NIST is a great example of a framework, is really center your efforts around a framework that makes you an educated consumer. So it's going to be important for you to have a solid understanding for how to approach the problem statement that you're ultimately trying to answer, and then utilize that framework to guide you through the process of determining what your unique cyber posture may be and how you can address that. The third thing that I want to encourage folks to think about, and I think Michael alluded to this as well, is look, cybersecurity is a team sport. So anyone who thinks you're going to solve all your problems by taking individual steps, you're probably missing you're going to miss the measure on that. it's really critical to not only consider your discrete vulnerabilities, but to ask complex, maybe more nuanced questions about what your vendors are doing, what your suppliers are doing, what other individuals or entities that may be connected to your networks are doing, and how they're protecting themselves. Because again, we're all part of our collective defense in this process, and we each serve a role in that process. But it's really important to engage that dialogue as part of that assessment of vulnerability to decide where you have the opportunities to address some critical capability gaps that persist across the country.
Right on. And with that, I want to invite our audience to also use the rest of time to ask your questions. If you put them in the chat window, we'll take it up. Meanwhile, I do have another question for both of you, maybe as a wrap-up thought as well, which is that the small businesses as a group, as a collective group together, they have been made adequately clear now that there is equity issue among the small businesses. And during COVID, the disadvantaged groups or businesses cannot keep their stores open. Therefore, they are just out of business. Whereas some may be able to get online, and the online business acted as a safety measure. And we, as a nonprofit, actually did manage to help 24 of small businesses to get online securely. And that's one advantage of us doing it, because we baked in cybersecurity and privacy as we helped them get online. Now, there are a lot of initiatives with funding to help more small businesses go online. Not all of them have the security and privacy baked in. And as such, do you have any guidance as to, or sharing as to what your agency plan to do to maybe work with the SBA, etc., and also working with community-driven initiatives like ours to help the small businesses do it right from the get-go, from the onset? Alex, first.
Yeah, I'm going to change my name to Alex. Trent,
I'm so sorry.
Either way it works. No, not at all. I blame Alex for that. Ugh, Alex. No, that's a great question. So let me just start at the outset by reiterating a point I made earlier, but then turning it on its head. And that is that cybersecurity is absolutely a team sport. Now, what we've talked about today is the role that communities play, the role that individuals play, the role that small businesses play in protecting themselves. What we haven't talked about is the role that industry plays in providing the tools and capabilities that these other members of the team need to ensure the security of our collective networks and our collective assets and critical infrastructure. So one of the things that we are now pivoting towards within CISA is really redoubling our focus on working with industry. We're thinking of that from two perspectives. One is that we want to drive security by default. Now, what that means is that, frankly, customers should have an expectation that technology products should have strong security features out of the box without added costs. That should mean that as educated consumers, our small businesses, our individuals, our communities should rely that strong security is baked into the product at the outset, and that it is available to them as a component of the service or the product that they're purchasing from day one. We want to ensure that is done across the board and across industry. Now, particularly when we know that there are target-rich, resource-poor organizations that are rendered uniquely vulnerable in the current environment, we want to ensure that those consumers of services from industry are really bringing their voices to bear to make the expectation that there should be security by default from the products and services that they're acquiring. The second is to catalyze what we call security by design. Now, that really gets at the idea that we should expect that technology is designed, developed, and tested to dramatically reduce the number of exploitable flaws before a product or service is released to the market. for broad use or consumption. We all rely on technology in the execution of our day-to-day lives and the delivery of the products and services that we and small businesses across the country deliver every day on behalf of the American people. And those businesses and those individuals should rely that the products that they rely upon were designed with security in mind. So that's two things we want to pivot towards. And again, just to reiterate the point, this is a team sport. We're all on the same team in this effort, and the industry has to play their part as part of those efforts as well.
Thank you, Trent. And Michael, your last word, and we're going to wrap up.
Regarding the outreach to small businesses and the inclusion, this is an inclusion and equity issue, just like other things are. One of the things that, you mentioned COVID, Lon. Interestingly, we have now all lived through a national scale virus attack, except it was biological instead of digital.
Mm-hmm.
But the model maps very closely into what the ecosystem of ones and zeros looks like relative to the ecosystem of human beings. And we have seen, one of the things I think that is the most important lesson we learned, assuming we've learned lessons, and I hope we did, out of the COVID situation, is the definition of a critical member of the community. And we've always thought about police, fire, first responders, the mayor's office, et cetera, specific agencies like public works. But what we've also learned recently is that critical members of the community include garbage collectors, as if anybody didn't really understand that before. And they include the people that keep the food service industry rolling, even among fast food. And so we should have now a new understanding and a new appreciation for the role that every member of the community actually plays in the cohesiveness and integrity of the community. And we need to think about cybersecurity exactly like that. And it's a fairly easy lift because we've all now lived through an experience very much like this. So when we think about building a cybersecurity infrastructure for a community, which of course is obviously scalable at the scale of state and nation, in fact, we need to think about all the people that play critical roles in that. And that's every small business. It's every business in general. It's all the university, research and development centers, and the community colleges that are training our next generation of IT specialists and cybersecurity specialists as well. All of those play critical roles in building integrity and cohesiveness into the future. At the same time, they are preparing for an awareness of the current threats that we face. This is like so many problems. We have to deal with the threats that face us right now, and we have to think ahead of the problem and try to deal with the threats that are coming down the line as well. And this goes at every level, right down to small businesses, and in fact, even individual families and everybody who carries a cell phone in their pocket or their purse. We're all in that. We're all very much in this together. So, Lon, I applaud what you and your group are doing, and this entire cybersecurity focus and the symposium for this year. So, thank you for the opportunity to participate.
Thank you. And that's all encouraging. That is fuel to our community-driven collaboration. So we will hopefully be able to pilot some programs, some funded programs, so that more momentum can be built up rather than just small pockets of efforts. So with that, thank you very much, Michael and Trent. I just need to look at your face instead of the name. Appreciate your joining and sharing your leadership with us.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the opportunity.
Trent, good to be with you. And Lon, thank you again.
Bye-bye.